men are faster and stronger than women, as can be noticed by almost every sport that they partake in, with almost no controversy whatsoever. No controversy whatsoever.
I'll give you an example. You say that.
No, let me just finish. Sorry, I haven't finished the sentence. I just want to say that because of the feminists rallying the firefighting professionals and saying that we don't want this, what's happened is that they've had to, the course that they would have to do, the physical course, that would have taken, let's say, 10 minutes, they've had to add, let's say, a minute to it. Why? So that they can be more inclusive of women. Now the question is, if there is a burning building, who would you want to save you? A woman that could come 30 seconds later, or a man that will come 30 seconds earlier will save your life? I believe you, the biggest feminist in the building would want a man to come, even if it means admission that in this situation we don't want equality of opportunity or outcome.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back, and let's get right into it.
Identical in their physiologies, psychologies, all their biologies, right? Now, what I'm saying to you, and I'd love to ask anyone this, in fact, not just you, if we agree with the premise that identical things should be treated equally and that men and women are not identical, there should be a therefore there, it's a deduction. Therefore, men and women should not be treated absolutely equally. So for example, right, and this is why I think there is a fallacy in the feministic argument, because when feminists on the one hand, they argue for equal outcomes, equal opportunities for me is not that controversial. I'm not talking about equal opportunities. I agree that there should be to a greater extent than not.
Should we not concentrate on that as opposed to something that we both have said that's not really a thing?
To a greater extent, but there are exceptions to the rule. Like for example, the situation in America, where the firefighters in America had to go through a whole they do like a physical challenge. Yeah, they do it in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. And the feminists campaigned against them. And because men are faster and stronger than women, as can be noticed by almost every sport that they partake in, with almost no controversy whatsoever. No controversy whatsoever.
I'll give you an example. You say that.
No, let me just finish. Sorry, I haven't finished the sentence. I just want to say that because of the feminists rallying the firefighting professionals and saying that we don't want this, what's happened is that they've had to, the course that they would have to do, the physical course, that would have taken, let's say, 10 minutes, they've had to add, let's say, a minute to it. Why? So that they can be more inclusive of women. Now the question is, if there is a burning building, who would you want to save you? A woman that could come 30 seconds later, or a man that will come 30 seconds earlier will save your life? I believe you, the biggest feminist in the building would want a man to come, even if it means admission that in this situation we don't want equality of opportunity or outcome. So this is just one specialized example. I'm not saying society is filled with those examples, but this is an exacerbated example of a situation where it's very clear that men have an advantage over women, and a non-recognition of this is tantamount to life and death. So this is where feminism can lead to death. Now, the point I'm making to you is, we have to look, because you're a man of science and you talk about empiricism and rationalism and these things, if we look holistically, and once again, what is the most effective and efficient thing for an economy, we have to take into consideration those factors. Once again, feminists, and this is the argument of Warren Farron, he says that they don't take into consideration the fact that men have been conscripted into the armies for maybe 10 for the whole of American history. Ooh. There's been male conscription, there has never been female conscription. If we want to equalize the historical problem of patriarchal society, what we're going to need to do is conscribe women to an army for the same amount of times that we've conscribed men to the army. So if we want equality, now we have to get women drafted, forced into being in an army, drafted and forced into being in an army the same amount of times that men had been in the past. But this argument, this is why it's a fallacious argument, and it's premised on a false premise. And the premise is, despite the despite the natural differences, we should have the equality on every level. And I'm saying to you that doesn't make any sense. If we accept the premise that identical things should be treated equally, and we identify that women are not identical to men, then there must be a space, at least in some instances, where women will be treated differently to men. That's why we have maternity leave. That's why we have so many things society has put in place for women. That's why in emergencies, women and children are taken out first before men, because it's assumed men are more physically self-sufficient, and rightfully, in my opinion, assumed that men are more physically self-sufficient than women. That's why men have been drafted into the armies, and that's why women have been able to enjoy the privilege of being protected by male military men for almost all of civilization cross-culturally. So we can't have our cake and eat it both. we can't say we want equality of outcome and opportunity, but at the same time have these exceptions which feminists put in place, you see, which of course entitle them to things which are otherwise not.
Then this is what I'm trying to say. Your argument is reductionist. And when I say reductionist,
it doesn't mean it's wrong.
I understand, but I say it in the sweetest sense. Right?
Yeah.
I understand you come from a standpoint where there's a lot of colonial imperialist science that has been enforced on the Middle East as if it's a higher standard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming to say that in particular, that's not the case. We can work together, kind of thing.
Yeah,
I feel like there's a lot.
I agree that we can work together.
There's a lot of conservative values that the Middle East and certain Arab countries have that the West has lost. Now that would be a nice middle to come into, discussing those differences, and we can meet in the middle of that. But the only problem I have to say is that when it comes to talking to Muslims in particular, that it becomes a very reductionist argument in the sense that, like you say, there's a difference between men and women. I'll ask you a simple question. Can you name me a white sprinter faster than any black
No,
female sprinter?
And that's why I say to you that I've always made the argument, I've made this on camera as well, that actually this is the fallacy of the West. Because if you look at the sprinters and, for example, black sprinters, they have consistently outperformed white sprinters for the last 100 years. Now that's the question. Because they're not equal. No, do you think? Well, hold on. Black sprinters and white sprinters are not equal.
Well, you gotta be fair. You gotta be fair.
They're not.
No, I understand.
Black sprinters are faster.
We know why
genetically.
No, it said I hate that the clip ends there, but I just want to correct the brother there. May Allah guide him to Islam if he's not Muslim thus far, because it is an old video. But I want to stop him and say, no, bro, we won't meet you guys halfway. Islam is perfect. We don't meet anyone halfway with anything.
Yeah.
Can we still live in non-Muslim kuffar societies and operate within it and live harmoniously? Of course. No one's denying that. But we won't change who we are or compromise the deen because we want to meet anyone halfway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would add, if you're living in non-Muslim lands, you should have the intention of giving dawah there. Because what else are you doing there? Unless nowhere else to go, right? In that case, okay. But if you're there, you have to give dawah. It's obligatory.
It's crazy. On the side note, Mohammed Hijab, how old is this video, by the way?
This video is old enough to know that, man, he was looking like I don't want to be in a fight with him, bro, back then.
I was about to say he was looking stacked, but like an untrained stacked, like genetically stacked person.
Yeah.
Like if he were to train, he would actually be like stupid stacked.
He still does, I believe, jiu-jitsu, but someone commented, I think the top comment on the video, I believe he liked it too, unless I'm wrong, but it said that, mashallah, I wouldn't want to be in a debate or in a street fight with Mohammed Hijab.
MashaAllah. May Allah bless him, bro. May Allah bless him.
I mean.
Yeah, but to the topic of the video, subhanAllah, 100%. And this is a very, very big failure when it comes to feminism, because equality and equity and feminism, they don't define it the same way as it ought to be defined, right? And if they really want to have this hedonistic worldview, meaning they minimize pain and maximize pleasure, right? Also meaning that they minimize death and maximize life, if that is what's pleasurable. And nowadays you don't even know, because so many people want to die nowadays. May Allah protect us. But if they really want to keep up with that hedonistic lifestyle, then they ought to be truthful when it comes to things like the example he gave, the firefighting and all of that. I would extend that to anything, like even paramedics. If it's easier for a man to lift me onto what do they call a stretcher or something, and put me in the back of the ambulance, and take me to the hospital, then okay, send the man.
Yeah. I think his example was or his argument, that's the word I was looking for. His argument was perfect in and of itself. Where it's like when he said that if you have a burning building, and then if the man can get to you 30 seconds earlier than the woman, like the 30 seconds can mean life or death. So it don't matter if you want a woman or if you want a man, it don't matter none of that. You just want to be alive. So it's like at that point, a feminist would choose the man. So I think it was perfect what he said, and it is an extreme argument, but it shows the truth of it. It shows the reality of it, and that's where people just people have to take from that extreme example, because when something is extreme like that, then it'll start to trickle down in the non-extreme versions, and obviously in different ways, maybe in ways that are not as intense as in this example, but in ways where it's like, you know what, there's still impact here. There's still something going on behind the scenes because we are allowing this to occur.
Bro, look at like oil rigs and coal mines. Like these are just dangerous jobs dominated by men, but no one's talking about them. Even the whole gender wage gap. I've read countless studies that I'll try to link in the description, guys. If I forget, remind me. How many times women say that we're paid less, and you look at all these studies. They're longitudinal studies, subhanAllah, but they're talking about total gross net earnings of men versus women. They're not talking about specific sectors or occupations. Do you get what I mean? And it's like most of the highest paying jobs are performed by men, like neurosurgeons and whatnot and so forth. So it's like, how are you going to compare that? And even when you look within sectors, there's studies to prove that women take more vacation days on average. They have non-paid leaves, maternity, all that. So I don't understand this, man. Like, I really don't.
Have you seen in the army I don't know if it's the basic training or if it's like the test or something that they have to go through, the PT test? I don't know what it is, but all I do know is that they actually made it easier and they prolonged the time so that way that women would have more of a fair chance. It's like, just think about that, bro. Like, you're living in a place where you kind of depend on this army to protect you from invaders outside. Like, let's say there was war, and let's say Germany was going to attack us. No, nothing against Germany. I'm just saying, like, for the example, right? Let's say Germany is going to attack us. Like, okay, would you be secure in your safety, in your life, knowing that you have an army who they went through rigorous training and they became very skilled in martial warfare? Or would you be more secure and feeling safe knowing that this army, basically, they had it easy?
I would feel safe
It's
with the second option, bro, because I know that the enemy team, they wouldn't do anything because it's wrong to hit girls, guys. So I know that they would just forfeit and we would win by default. So I would go with the mommies and the aunties and all that.
This guy, man.
I don't know about
Hashtag
that.
aunties if you guys made it this far.
It's fun a lot. One thing I want to add is that this doesn't apply in all cases, obviously, and it's not meant to apply in all cases. It's just here to show, as far as I know, it's just here to show that the mechanism in and of itself is not sufficient for all of life. If you take the mechanism that they use of equal opportunity, equal outcome, it falls apart in certain places, which is why you have to be careful with mechanisms. I want to give another example that I think is easier to understand. Utilitarianism is maximizing pleasure, minimizing pain, right? That's utilitarianism, or the most amount of pleasure for the least amount of pain. But in a case like that, if you have, I'm just going to use light terms, but you guys probably know what I mean. 4 people taking advantage of one person, right? Those 4 people they're pleased, and there's only one person who's like hurt in that case. But that's where the mechanism would fall apart. So same thing here. When you look at the extreme examples, you'll see where the mechanism starts to fall apart, which is why you should have general rules until you have specific situations. And then for the specific situations, you have specific rules, which is exactly what Islam has. They have general hukum, the general ruling, and then specific ruling for more specific cases. And that's the way we ought to live life if we actually care about our well-being, the well-being of society as a whole.
Yeah, and there's people who will look at the examples that we've given, primarily, I'd say the extreme example. And what I said, where it's like, if you have something that's that extreme, then it trickles down to the non-extreme versions. They would say, well, isn't Islam the same? Where you have these extremists going out here and ending people's lives in the name of Allah. It's like, okay, well, there's a difference here, right? These are people who take things out of context. Yeah. In feminism, nothing is out of context there. There is no like, oh, this is exactly what it is. No. Everyone who is considered feminism, they're gonna function off that. So it's not these extreme examples of feminism that we give. It's not like this person taking it out of context. No, they are perfectly within their context. So that's the big difference here.
Yeah. It's a part of their ideology. Right. Extremism is not part of Islamic ideology. It actually speaks out against it. The Prophet spoke out against it. 100%. Right. Is that it for this?
With that being said,
Allahumma
go ahead,
atina
bro.
fid dunya. Allahumma
Hassan.
atina. اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
3 for Sunnah, you dig?
That's crazy because y'all know how like impactful it was.
Yeah.
Listen, if you're watching this, it was such a strong dream that I woke up and then I was talking to my dad and I was crying because of how strong the dream was, how impactful the dream was. And then I ended up driving to the mosque. It was like 5:40 something to do Fajr at the mosque. And I was crying the entire way to the mosque. And subhanAllah, I think it's crazy that
Mm-hmm.